very, very live right now? I hope so. We'll find out. If you're watching this on the VOD, you'll probably see this, but if you're watching live, you probably won't because of the way that YouTube works, which is fun. Anyway, hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream where we have some more news to discuss surrounding Leeds United, Leeds United's transfer news and all that kind of stuff, which is sort of an interesting one today because we have been... I've got something on my shoulder. There we go. We have been effectively ruled out of a move, but it's a good thing, which is a very, very weird thing to happen, at least when it comes to conversation around Leeds and transfers. We tend to go, we're not going to do a thing, what do we do now? But in this specific instance, I think there is a very, very big positive to be found in terms of the developments that we have seen today, which are specifically, if we can have a look at the tweet that I saw earlier that sort of told absolutely everything that we need to tell. In fact, no, what I'll do is I will do the Daniel Farke bit on it and then I will cover what the story is because Daniel Farke spoke about this in his press conference, which I thought was very, very interesting. So, heading over to here. Shush, Daniel. Shush. I'm going to make you speak again. There we go. So, are we ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain. I can't hear you. Aye, aye, Captain. Here we go.
Yes, there are always many noises around.
My headphones are on.
Leeds United. You got the feeling so that, yeah, also each and every agent also tries to use our name sometimes anyhow in order to speak about his player. So because Leeds is a very big club and well-known club and passionate club and sometimes we are linked with players I've never heard the name anyhow. Of course, I know Mudryk. There's no doubt about him. He's a really good player, but like always, I never comment on any speculations or any other players who are playing currently for other teams. So for that, no comments for me in public about this topic. I would also expect no one from other clubs to comment about my players anyhow. So for that, out of respect, I will never give any comments about players who are currently playing for other clubs and no comments on speculations.
So those are the basics from Daniel Farke. He's not going to do the speculating, all this kind of stuff. We've heard names. We're always linked with various players from all over the shop, which is sort of fine. But when it comes to what the news actually is surrounding Mykhailo Mudryk, we might not have too much of a choice anymore. Because apparently, although he does prefer to remain in the Premier League and all this kind of stuff, we've fallen out with Chelsea a touch, which is a sort of miracle considering the fact that we don't really have a very positive history with Chelsea in the first place. As of Monday morning, Chelsea do not consider Leeds a viable option, but Mudryk is still open to a move to Elland Road, which is something that we've heard from all over the place. Various people consistently saying that Mykhailo Mudryk, if he's going to move, Mudryk likes the idea of Elland Road, all this kind of stuff, which is fine enough until you realise that the two clubs absolutely cannot come to an agreement on this one because it is difficult. It remains to be seen if Leeds still attempt with a second bid despite no breakthroughs in talks over the weekend, which is sort of fine. There's also stuff on this kind of bits and bobs. But the sort of interesting one that I saw very recently was from Zinny Boswell, who stated that our opening loan was turned down. He's not training with the main group at Chelsea, but Xabi Alonso says they're not in a rush, so they're not trying to force him out, which is sort of understandable and fine. But at the same time, it's not very positive for Mudryk, because Mudryk's current sort of status is hasn't played football in fucking forever, which means that at some point he's got to do something. And things seem to have gotten significantly worse. There's more conversation around sort of Leeds are potentially in for a second bid. I think Fabrizio Romano specifically said that the other day. But at the end of the day, that didn't happen, and that will not happen because the link isn't there. And as I mentioned in the video that I did this morning, Leeds United came in with an offer of around 50% of his wages, which will be approximately £2.5 million a year, which is fine enough, I suppose, for a player that hasn't... Well, for a player that is Premier League standard. Someone that is a squad player that is a little bit of a backup. He's not going to be the superstar in your squad because you're not paying him the superstar's wages. To do that, you're talking between the sort of 80, 90, 100k plus sort of territory. You're paying sort of squad wage, which is fine because as far as we are aware, he would effectively be a squad standard sort of level, which we all sort of understood this going into it. The problem sort of emerges when you look a little bit at what Chelsea's response was, and Chelsea's response was, no, if you are hiring him, you will pay all of his wages, which, on the face of it, fair enough, but the fact of the matter is we would be making him play football to increase his value for Chelsea to be able to sell him at some point in the future, which doesn't make any sort of sense in the slightest for Leeds United to do. That would just be a case of you're making things more difficult for yourself, because then you've got to have this same conversation all over again in a season's time, which you never want to do, because then you end up in this weird sort of cycle where you're not able to sign anyone on a permanent basis because everyone sort of gets used to you as a farm club where you can just sort of sign players and then they'll be like, okay, cool, thank you for doing us that duty and all that kind of nonsense, and then they'll move on. Hold on, I just need to fix something fairly quick because something isn't working. Okay, something is working now. Yeah, I've got a weird little thumbnail problem going on which I'm having to fix. There we go. Let's hope that does it. So, the Mudryk deal is functionally dead, not only because they want us to pay 100% of their wages, but because they also want a significant loan fee. So that would, his complete wages across a season would be about 5 million quid, which is a lot of money, without a doubt, especially considering we are looking at signing a very promising young player from Colombia. I will just quickly remind myself of his name, hold on. Deportivo Cali. They played last night, actually, against Internacional. Let's go to the match from last night, actually, because I know that he played in it. That's not the match from last night. I've clicked on the wrong thing. I'm having a time of it, if you couldn't tell. Right, Deportivo Cali. Yeah, I just can't read calendars, apparently. There we go. Orozco, that's the guy's name. We're looking at signing Orozco for around 5 million quid. Like, obviously, we'd have to pay his wages as well, but 5 million quid is a lot of money in the world of football, especially for a player you're not going to get permanently when you're effectively improving someone's stature and status for a completely different club. You don't benefit from the Mudryk signing in the slightest. Add on the loan fee, and then you're also getting into the sort of £7 or £8 million territory, which is vastly too much. It is beyond what I think is reasonable in any world for Leeds United to be paying for this guy. A little bit of context, by the way, that I've just learned, which is unpromising. Orozco played last night for Deportivo Cali. However, if I have a look at what happened throughout the match, Orozco came off as a substitute when it wasn't exactly the plan. So it looks like he's come off early with a little bit of a niggle, a little bit of an injury, so that could make things a little bit complicated in terms of signing him. But when you're signing players that are young and have a lot of promise behind them, if it's a little bit of a knock, it's not going to be too much of a problem. He will absolutely pass any given medical because it's fine, to be completely honest with you. It's not really a problem. It's more a case of they will have taken him off just to secure him, make sure he's wrapped up in a little bit of bubble wrap. He's not going to cause any problems. Ultimately, I think the problem with the Chelsea move is this, to be honest. They do think that we are mugs. They think that, because what Chelsea tend to do a lot of the time when they are selling players is apply some fictional concept value to their player, where they'll go, well, yeah, but he had potential and he's still young. He's not that young. He's 25 years old. In footballing terms, that is entering his peak, and he spent his developing years not actually playing any football. So, but not only that, but he's on a really, really long contract, and that means that he's got value. And it's like, Chelsea's understanding of transfers a lot of the time is if there's a big contract, then there's a big value. But at the same time, if I were to have signed for Chelsea and I were to have signed a 7-year contract, I can't suddenly say that I'm worth £30 million as a footballer. At best, I'm worth 30 quid. It's one of those where they get themselves sort of spiralled up into an idea of what a player's valuation is, and because they've got Strasbourg also effectively doing their bidding at this point, there's no particular world in which anyone's outwardly disagreeing with them a lot of the time. It's just a case of, well, we can't move a player on to Strasbourg. And then they'll do quite well at Strasbourg because at the end of the day, it's the French league, and the French league is, to put it in the kindest way possible, dog shit. And then they'll perform over there, and people's response will be like, oh, well, look, he did it in France. I don't care that he did it in France, to be completely honest with you. He could not do it at a Premier League level. He clearly cannot do it at any level for the past 20 months. Not his fault particularly, but he's still not done it. at any level for the last 20 months. So to say, look, we need 7 or 8 million quid across the length of a season is bonkers, and is peak Chelsea assuming that they can just rip off clubs in the same way that they get ripped off because they're happy to just piss money up a wall. I don't understand why we would do that, and I'm genuinely quite proud of the club for realising this, for going, no, that's a poor deal for us. We should never get involved with that conversation. That would be very, very bad. Let's give it a lot of space. No. And the fact that Mudryk is like, yeah, sure, I want to go to Leeds United, is in a way a positive. The fact that we've done the whole presenting ourselves thing, and we've done the whole, this is what the club is, this is how you would be integrated into it, this is what your role is, this is how we can improve you, because we know that that's the sort of structure of these conversations that we have with potential Leeds United players. The fact that that worked is still a good thing, because it shows that that pitch is still very, very positive, and it puts us in the right direction. However, I still think that he's not really a good enough prospect for Leeds United right now. Yes, he had potential, but yes, he would, in my opinion, devastate the no dickhead rule because of things that I've mentioned in previous videos, including making jokes of genocides, which isn't the best. And apparently being real full of slurs when it comes to rapping, but either way. Add on to that the fact that I don't think he's got the quality. We will have other players on the list of players that we are looking to sign for the left-wing position. In my view, Mudryk would be a mistake, and if we were to pay any more than 50% of his wages, it would be a mistake. I think it was clever, by the way, of the club to include an option to buy, because in the event that he does turn out to be really, really good, it would be good for Leeds to go, yes, please, we'll keep him. But he's not at the moment, and I don't think any form of we're going to have to spend a vast amount of money just to have you for a year, even if you're shit, doesn't work in our favour. So I think Mudryk, not happening, and we are all the better for it, which is quite nice. On what Sly has said here, Orozco plays a completely different role to Mudryk. Orozco is more of a defensive midfielder that sometimes does progressive stuff. Not in terms of, like, sometimes does increases in the minimum wage and human rights. No, this is on a football pitch. But then again, for Colombia's under-21s, 2 weeks ago, he did get sent off for 2 yellow cards, which is quite entertaining. He loves a booking, but he seems to be a sort of Ampadu role kind of player, which is sort of interesting. But Orozco and Mudryk are not in the same conversation in the slightest, I think. What I have seen as an interesting bit of conversation is more stuff around Leao, because our current, and you know, I'll directly run it by Lewis Dayton at the moment, LUFC Lewis, who tends to know his stuff quite often, has got an idea of what our players in have cost and what our players out have gained. So thus far, Trafford cost us 40, Mohorovic cost us 34, Elvedi cost us 8. Going out, Strauch 20, Gelhardt 8, Piru 4, Harrison 1, Schmidt 1. We've got other players to go out. Ramazani will go out at some point. I don't know whether that's a loan or if that's permanent, but we'll see. Joseph still has to go out. Whether that is a loan or permanent, I don't know. That'll probably wait till the winter window, though. But the interesting part around all this is our net spend is only 48 million quid, and we budgeted for quite a lot of money. And budgeting for quite a lot of money means that we have potential wiggle room for something like a Rafa Leao. Leao's price is currently set at £40 million. I don't think it will happen. I personally believe that Saudi Arabia is looking like the most likely outcome for him. But if he were being a little bit flexible in terms of wages, that kind of deal would be huge, to be honest. Yeah, there's a sort of consistent bit of chat around. So Al Hilal, for example, made an offer for Leao a while back. They offered him a massive contract. That one's not happened yet, in spite of someone reporting it, which is quite funny, to be honest with you. The fact that that one's not gone on. But the point isn't more we need to just be looking at Rafa Leao rather than Mudryk. The point is, because at the end of the day, it might still be a job for a left winger on loan, because that's what we were looking at for Mudryk. But there are better left wingers around. There are so many. Like, in the Chelsea squad alone, got a transfer marked. Chelsea, and we'll look at the players that are currently at Chelsea, and the players that I think are probably, at the very least this season, a better prospect than Mykhailo Mudryk. In terms of wingers and players that can cover as wingers, David Fofana can play on the wing. Mark Yu can play on the wing. Nicholas Jackson can play on the wing. Giovanni Quenda is a winger. Pedro Neto is a winger that they're actively trying to get rid of. Estevao's not going to go. Jamie Gittins they're looking to get rid of. Mykhailo Mudryk is the obvious one. But there's so many players in there that it's like, well, you can play on the wing, so why would we look at Mudryk when we can potentially look at you? And there's players like that throughout the league. Not just the Premier League, throughout La Liga as well. Because again, Rooney Bargi is potentially looking at a move somewhere, and if we are willing to put a decent bit of cash behind signing a player, why not go for someone like a Rooney Bargi? Like, if I am not mistaken, let's get Rooney Bargi stuff up, at least on the screen that I can see rather than you guys. Sorry about that one. But from a wage perspective, at Rooney Bargi alone, where is he? He's on €20,000 a week, reportedly, which is honestly fairly good work in terms of controlling a wage budget on the part of Barcelona. But €20,000 a week, if you pay all of his wages, you get to 40% of what we would be paying if we were paying for half of Mykhailo Mudryk's. His wage is a fifth of that of Mudryk. And he is actually a promising player. He is actually very, very good going forward. He's a very, very creative player. And you know what? Whilst we're there, let's just do Alejandro Balde at the same time. Because Alejandro Balde, very, very good left-back. 2-for-1 deal. Thank you very much, Barcelona. Balde versus Goodmanson at left-back. That'd be quite entertaining to see. But isn't he injured for the season? Bargi? I don't believe so. Is he? Let's have a look. Shit. Never mind. The Bargi conversation is done. But you get the vibe, you get the gist, you get the idea. There are plenty of players just across Europe. I pulled that off the top of my bonds and went, why don't we just sign him? And there we go. Like, there's a lot of options for top clubs that want to loan out actually good, promising players, top players that want a move to play a little bit of football, and there's plenty of players that are in a position of, well, I just want a change of scenery, like a Pascal Struijk. Struijk was one of those players that we could have probably got on a new contract if we would have tried like a couple of years back, but we got £20 million or so for him, and now we're just sort of fine because we've upgraded with Muharemovic. There are other clubs that have their Pascal Struijks to release. So we can fairly easily become a part of that conversation and ultimately get ourselves in a direction where we're financially benefiting ourselves for once from these deals of players that are pushing for moves. And I think that we can do that. Thought Balde was potentially off to Man U. Yeah, I've just seen that now that he's gotten an offer from Man United. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that Man United are going to get it done. Because Man United are quite bad at getting deals done a lot of the time. Of the two, obviously, they are probably a more attractive prospect. Because Scum have a lot more money to throw at players. But you never know. In fact, let's have a look at their wage budget at the moment. Jesus Christ, I forgot Marcus Rashford was still on £300 a week. Actually, right, I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to have a look at Leeds alongside Scum. Our highest paid player, according to Transfermarkt at the moment, because Trafford isn't on there yet, Wilson isn't on there yet, but our highest paid player at the moment is Dominic Calvert-Lewin, on £100,000 a week. I can't see Trafford being much more than that. It'd be like 110, I think, at most. If I'm looking down Scum's list of player wages, they are paying 115 for Lenny Yoro, and he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He's 15th on their list. So they'll probably be able to pay more for an Alejandro Balde. But to be honest with you, that's fine, because there's going to be other players on the market floating around all over the time. Perry's up there, isn't he? He's not moving. Perry is potentially moving. It's a little bit complicated. I think Perry's exit depends on someone like Zetterer's incoming. I've heard little bits around promising news surrounding Zetterer, but I don't want to fully throw my whole ass self behind that until I'm a little bit more certain and have it from more people. But the moment that someone like a Zetterer comes in, Perry will go out. And Perry isn't that high up the list, to be honest with you. He was on 50 grand a week, which is what we would be paying for Mykhailo Mudryk. And I'll be honest, across the length of a season, we get the same use out of Lucas Perry as we would Mykhailo Mudryk. Used in rotational moments and club matches, is my guess. If he starts for the cup game, he stays. Not necessarily. That's far from the case. If he starts for the cup game, then all that realistically means is that we are putting a little bit of care into the cup game and not wanting to risk James Trafford. Like, I wouldn't put Cairns in for the cup. The only reason that Lucas Perry got a squad number in the first place is because that swap with Zetterer hasn't happened yet. But him playing a single game in the cup doesn't mean that he stays. In the same way, look, a couple of seasons ago, Jorginho Rutter played in the League Cup and then left the next morning. Starting in a cup game doesn't mean anything for future transfers. I mean, you can probably read something from it, but I don't believe that that is realistically going to be the case in this one. I'd start Trafford in the cup. Maybe. It's one of those where, because it's a quick turnaround, I'd maybe not want to risk it. Plus, I quite like having someone that is a cup goalkeeper. So, like, goalkeeping's hard. Goalkeeping hurts. And if we're going for a full rotated side, I've not got a problem in the slightest with one of those rotations being Trafford out. But I don't know. We'll see. Beyond the news surrounding Mykhailo Mudryk, I'm not going to do too much more of a stream, but that's fine, to be honest with you. I kind of expected it to be a short one. We haven't got anyone else. We've got Perry. Lucas Perry is still here. As is Cairns. Like, it's fine. We can use those players for the time that they are still here, at the very least. And there was still a very heavy implication from Daniel Farke that Perry will be on the way out in his press conference, because he said, well, Lucas Perry's still here. We don't know what's going to happen in the coming days, but so it feels that way. Joe mentioned earlier in his pod today that Zetterer may have already had part one of his medical done at Thorpe Arch. I see. That was what I had heard as well. And I wasn't going to go with it yet, but if Joe's gone with that on his video, I'm very tempted to match him. Because I think that is a very significant bit of news, to be completely honest with you. In fact, I might do that as a quick recorded right now video. Wrong thing. There we go. So, if you guys fancy, you can join me for what is going to be a sort of video recording that I will put out at, I don't know, 5 o'clock, something like that. We'll see. But we'll get into that in a moment's time once I have brought up absolutely everything that I need to. There we go. But then there's a counter report from the Frankfurt side, which is very interesting. Right, I'll be covering that. And it'll be a bit of an interesting one, I believe. We'll see. Anyway, right, so, as I always do when I'm recording something, I start by going test, 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 words, 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 test, words, test, words, test, words, to see if the mic peaks. And the mic is at a good level, and I'm happy with it. So, I'm going to press record in 3, 2, 1, and then I'm going to ignore the chat for a few minutes, unless someone has something very sort of specific to mention on the Zetterer thing. If you do, shout it out, and I will more than happily discuss it, but it's fine, we'll get into it. So, 3, 2, 1. As we all know, Leeds United have had a significant amount of interest in signing a backup goalkeeper, and who that backup goalkeeper is has hopped from potential player to potential player. There was stuff around Jason Steele a couple of weeks ago, a little bit of a conversation around Zetterer right now. There's a little bit of conversation from some people who think it's still going to be Lucas Perry. Personally, that's not my opinion, but we have had potential progress on one front of signing a backup goalkeeper. And I say potential progress because I'm going to have to sort of bed this one in a lot of sort of supporting terminology, because there are conflicting reports, but the conflicting reports make this even more interesting. When apparently Zetterer, Michael Zetterer specifically, may have completed part of his medical at Thorpe Arch already. Now, this is especially important because the moment you've done a bit of your medical, effectively a move is on the brink of happening. But this is where the Zetterer conversation gets even more complicated, because the Zetterer conversation has been complicated from the start. To begin with, we had an idea that Leeds United had an interest in signing Zetterer. That was from an Athletic report, which effectively said that Leeds United are fairly close to getting the deal done, need to cozy out the remaining details, but as far as they were aware, the deal for Zetterer was on the brink of completion. The next day or two later, there was a very conflicting report from Zetterer's agent, which is sort of weird because Zetterer's agent came out and said, well, no, there is not a move with Leeds United on the brink of being done. It's not close, all this kind of stuff. There is still various bits and bobs to be sorted. That's where things get a little bit complicated because at the same time as that report came out, there were a lot of reports on the Leeds side that were still saying, no, as far as we're aware, we're still very, very near to having this job done. And it was, again, from sources that like to double-check and make sure that everything is 100% on point and they don't like to sort of make things up as they go, which is very, very, very promising. It's nice to see when clubs are happy to make sure that they have given the right information and journalists are reporting the correct information as well. However, the feeling behind that one, in my opinion, was that the agent may have been looking for a little bit more money from the deal, a little bit more for his client, a little bit more for the club, I don't know, but there were still bits to be hashed out very, very clearly. Now, we get to today, where I've heard from not only Jer, who mentioned it to me and on his video earlier on today, that Zetterer may have completed the first part of his medical today, which is a very, very significant step, which is basically all of the deal is done, everything is sort of sorted in terms of numbers, and it's just waiting for a signature, and waiting for a signature is a good place to be. It's just a case of do the promo shoot and all that kind of stuff and then get it across the line, bish, bash, bosh. But then some insiders from Frankfurt seem to be saying something a little bit different, because this report from 2 days ago from Inside Eintracht FFM, which is a very, very highly followed sort of Eintracht Frankfurt reporting place, stated this, if I can find the right source. There we go. It should be clear by now that Zetterer is switching to Leeds United. This was 2 days ago, which is, again, roughly the timeline matches up. If 2 days ago it was borderline certain, then we can assume there might be a medical happening right about now. Adds up a little bit. Until this morning. At which point, they said that Leeds will probably not get rid of their backup goalkeeper, Perry. This is in direct contrast to what Daniel Farke said a few minutes ago, but I will get to what he said in the press conference in a moment's time. Zetterer is back in Frankfurt and is training again this morning. Everything's getting really, really complicated. Goes on to say he's flying to Leeds and then back again because it still isn't that far after all. I can't imagine that. It's possible that something else will happen in the next few days, but it's not necessarily normal for the player to come back after such negotiations. Let's keep in mind, at the same time, Lucas Perry has gone out to a club to do a medical and then come back after further negotiations. It's a thing that's sort of happening in this deal right now, where there's a lot of dominoes that need to fall, and a lot of those dominoes need to fall in the right direction. What my sort of read on the situation is that, like Lucas Perry, it's been a case of flew out to do the medical and came back. Which I'm not entirely understanding why, because as far as I can tell, the domino chain effectively ends at Zetterer, unless Eintracht Frankfurt have completed a deal already for a new goalkeeper, which they were specifically looking in the direction of signing Noah Archibolu. Noah Archibolu is a very good goalkeeper. He's one of the players that, at the start of this transfer window, before we were linked with James Trafford, I said we should very probably make a move for, because he is an excellent goalkeeper, German, 23 years old, good stuff. But Frankfurt haven't completed that move yet, and my feeling is Frankfurt need to finish the move for Archibolu in order for Leeds to make the move for Zetterer, in order for Perry to make the move to Torino. So we are currently sat in the middle of this very, very weird set of dominoes, and I will be honest, I don't know if Freiburg need to sign a new goalkeeper, because they are the club that Archibolu is currently playing for, which makes things even more complicated. So I think at the moment we are like the third or fourth step in a set of dominoes, and once they fall, Archibolu moves, Zetterer moves, Perry moves. Which is why, in today's press conference, Daniel Farke was asked about Lucas Perry, and he was specifically asked, so what's going on there? Because we know that there's a potential move going on. We don't quite understand it from the journalistic perspective, which makes complete sense. Like, everyone's looking at the situation and going, what's going on? Which is fair enough, because everything sort of halted all at once. And Daniel Farke effectively said that at the moment he's still a player under Leeds United contract, but we don't know what will happen in the coming days. And that don't know what will happen in the coming days is fairly significantly going to be couched in the fact that we're 2 or 3 steps down the line of what needs to happen. Archibolu needs to move. Then Zetterer, then Perry. But I think we're in a situation where at Leeds United we're relatively comfortable with the goalkeeping situation, and a lot of people looking at the situation and going, well, we need to make a move right now or Perry will go and no one will come in. That's not the case, I think, because we are waiting for our goalkeeper to come in the form of Zetterer before Perry goes. No matter what, we will approach the season ahead of us with a backup goalkeeper. I'm just going to put that one out there now. There is no world in which I envision us selling Lucas Perry only for Zetterer or an alternative to not come in. And I feel like if Perry does move, then we will have other players lined up to fill in this role. Someone like a Jason Steele as the example. There are goalkeepers that are looking for moves right now, and we can probably find one that looks at the Premier League and goes, I don't mind being second choice there for a while. At the end of the day, goalkeeping is one of those positions where you understand that you're not going to play a lot of the time, unless you're like 5-a-side or 7-a-side or something and you're the only goalkeeper. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at the fact that a lot of clubs have 3 goalkeepers, 2/3 of goalkeepers know they're not getting football. And for me, finding a second choice that sees the opportunity behind James Trafford, if James Trafford gets an injury, cool, I'm a starting goalkeeper in the Premier League and I might be able to hold on to that. So, to sum up, Zetterer may have done his medical at Thorpe Arch. It's very, very complicated. I believe that is probably the case because it means that once those dominoes start to fall, we can get that move across the line like that. Nice and quick, easily done. We know what he's like medically, just sign the papers. Then again, Zetterer potentially back at Frankfurt doing training, which is quite fun. Mark Beaumont in the chat, I'm recording this one live, sorry about that one, says, good afternoon, Joe, this backup goalkeeping situation's reaching slapstick proportions right now. I don't think it is. I'm fairly happy with it, to be honest with you. I think, whilst the goalkeeping situation is a little bit weird, like, without a doubt, it's standard. Just wait for other moves to be done before you can make yours. This happens every transfer window. I'm settled on it. And I'm happy enough that we can wait a while and get a backup goalkeeper that we need, and if not, Lucas Perry's fine. But that's just what I think. As always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe as well. That'd be massively appreciated. And, yeah, hope you all enjoyed. I will see you all later. Toodaloo. Also, definitely subscribe, right? Because I know enough of you are subscribed to do this. I've got a very, very big video planned at 10,000 subscribers. And I know I'm miles away right now. I'm like 1.9 thousand away. But help me get there, and you'll get to see the snazzy video. Thank you very much. Anyway, toodaloo, ta-ra, bosh. So, that was the video done. And now I'm going to chuck together a thumbnail, and I'll let you join me for the process of doing the thumbnail, where I have a big document that's got all of my thumbnails in it, actually. This one. There we go. Here's a bunch of thumbnails. So we have Zetterer is already in this one. So if I shift him across a bit, and I get a picture of Lucas Perry. There we go. Lucas Perry looking a little bit confused. Why not? Pop him in there. Remove the background. Squash that across. Do we think yellow or blue background on this one? I'll test both. It's fine. I can A/B test that. Zetterer medical. Reportedly, these two are taking up way too much of the screen, so I'll have to move Zetterer across and then shrink Perry down a bit. There we go. Zetterer medical reportedly complete. Not a fair way of putting that? I think so. No, I'll swap that around. Reports say Zetterer medical complete. There we go. Because I don't see us doing, like, a bit of a medical. Like, I imagine the first stage is just do almost everything and then polish up the remaining bits at the end, but that'll do. Joe, I don't think Perry stays as he's been pushed for a move. He won't want to stay as number 2 when he came as number 1. That's fair, but at the end of the day, if we can't get a goalkeeper in, then we're not going to let him go, I don't think. So duplicate you. Get a blue version. I'll call you Zetmed Yell. I'll call you Zetmed Blue. Click on you, share, download just this page. Done. Click on you, share, download just this page. Bosh. Cool. So that's done. I've got to go because I've got to get on a call in 9 minutes' time, but that's fine. Is Zetterer 9 feet tall? I imagine so, yeah. Why not? But I've got to go. Hope you enjoyed the stream. If you did, please pop a like on it. Subscribe if you're not yet as well, because I've got a big thing planned. Hope you all enjoyed. I will see you all. Hold on, have I fucked that one up? No, I don't think I've fucked that one up. We'll see. It's fine. Anyway, see you later. Ta-ra. Stress.